The Jesus we see in many churches today, if not most, is very different from what he actually looked like.
A letter written long ago could hold a surprising perspective on how Jesus may have looked. This document, attributed to a man named Lentulus, was reportedly sent to Caesar, offering a detailed description of Jesus' physical appearance. What makes this letter so intriguing is that the description it provides does not align with the traditional depictions of Jesus seen in paintings, sculptures, and religious artwork throughout history. Instead of the familiar images many have grown accustomed to, this letter paints a different picture, one that challenges conventional ideas and invites curiosity. Some scholars dismiss the letter as a fabrication, arguing that Lentulus never existed and that no such record can be verified. They believe that the letter was written much later and does not hold historical credibility. However, others argue that if the letter were genuine, it could offer valuable insight into how Jesus was perceived during his time. Could this description, if authentic, reshape the way people visualize Jesus? Could it prompt a reevaluation of centuries-old artistic representations? While the debate continues, the letter remains a compelling mystery. But who exactly was Lentulus? What connection did he have to Jesus? And how did he come to provide such a strikingly detailed account of Jesus' appearance? The search for answers takes us deep into historical texts and artistic interpretations, where centuries of tradition have influenced the way Jesus is visually represented. As time passed, different images of Jesus became widely accepted. Among the most well-known is the Divine Mercy image, which emerged in the 20th century. This image, highly revered by many Christian communities, holds a special place in spiritual devotion. According to historical accounts, the inspiration for this image came from a vision experienced by Saint Faustina Kowalska in 1931 in the town of Plock, Poland. Faustina, a Catholic nun, recorded in her diary that Jesus appeared to her in a vision, asking her to have an artist create a painting that reflected what she had seen. She described Jesus as standing with his right hand raised in blessing, while his left hand touched his chest. From his heart, two radiant beams of light extended outward, one red and one white. These rays were said to symbolize divine mercy, representing both spiritual purification and the grace offered through faith. Wanting to fulfill the request given in her vision, Faustina sought out an artist named Eugene Kazmarowski, who was commissioned to bring the Divine Mercy image to life. The resulting painting became one of the most widely recognized religious images, inspiring countless believers. Over time, this depiction of Jesus found its way into churches, homes, prayer cards, stained glass windows, and devotional artwork worldwide. Despite the reverence given to the Divine Mercy image, Faustina initially struggled with the painting's final appearance. When she first saw the completed work, she felt that it did not fully capture the beauty of the vision she had experienced. Overwhelmed with emotion, she questioned whether any human artist could truly depict the divine presence she had seen. However, according to her writings, Jesus reassured her that the significance of the image was not in the physical likeness, but in the grace it represented. This idea that religious imagery is meant to inspire faith, rather than provide an exact representation, has been echoed throughout history. For many, the Divine Mercy image serves as a reminder of compassion, forgiveness, and hope, rather than a literal depiction of what Jesus may have looked like. It is a powerful example of how art and spirituality intersect, influencing the way believers connect with their faith. While the Divine Mercy image remains one of the most significant depictions of Jesus, it is not the only one with an interesting story behind it. Another iconic representation is the Head of Christ by Warner Salmon, a portrait that became one of the most recognized images of Jesus in the 20th century. Salmon, an American artist known for his religious artwork, reportedly created the Head of Christ after experiencing a vivid moment of inspiration. According to his account, the image came to him in a flash, almost as if it had been placed in his mind by a higher power. Late one night in January 1924, Salmon, who had a background in commercial art, sketched the initial concept that would later become one of the most widely reproduced religious images in history. The painting itself presents a serene, compassionate depiction of Jesus. His head is slightly tilted, his eyes gazing gently upward, exuding warmth and reassurance. This image quickly resonated with Christian communities, crossing denominational boundaries and becoming a staple in religious spaces. Churches, homes, hospitals, and even small devotional items carried this image, solidifying its place as a familiar representation of Jesus. During times of hardship, particularly in the mid-20th century, the head of Christ became a source of comfort for many. It was widely distributed among soldiers during World War II, with small reproductions being handed out as a symbol of faith and encouragement. For those facing uncertainty, the image served as a reminder of divine presence, offering a sense of hope and strength. Despite its widespread popularity, some art critics and historians have debated whether the head of Christ reflects an accurate depiction of Jesus. Like many other religious artworks, it was influenced by cultural and artistic traditions rather than historical evidence. The soft facial features, light complexion, and European stylistic elements contrast with descriptions that suggest Jesus may have had a more Middle Eastern appearance. Nonetheless, for many believers, the significance of the painting lies not in historical accuracy, but in the message it conveys: a sense of peace, faith, and spiritual connection. Both the Divine Mercy image and the head of Christ exemplify how artistic interpretations have shaped the way Jesus is envisioned across different cultures and eras. These images, while distinct in style and origin, have left a lasting impact on Christian devotion, influencing the way countless individuals relate to their faith. As discussions about religious imagery continue, new perspectives emerge. Some seek to explore historical records to uncover what Jesus may have truly looked like, while others embrace artistic depictions as symbols of spiritual guidance rather than exact representations. The question of how Jesus appeared physically may never be definitively answered, but the images inspired by faith continue to hold deep meaning for those who look to them for inspiration. The story of Lentulus' letter, whether fact or fiction, adds another layer to this discussion. It challenges us to think about how representations of Jesus have evolved over time and why certain images have become widely accepted. As we examine these depictions, we are reminded that faith is not about a single image or physical description, but about the message and teachings that endure throughout history. With so many different portrayals of Jesus, each carrying its own significance, the question remains: what does Jesus truly look like? Perhaps the answer is less about physical appearance and more about the impact he has had on generations of believers. The legacy of faith, kindness, and compassion is what endures, regardless of how he is depicted in art. As we continue exploring the many representations of Jesus, we find that each tells a unique story. Whether through historical descriptions, artistic visions, or personal devotion, these images remind us of the enduring influence of faith across cultures and generations. But the deeper question remains: how does each interpretation shape our understanding of who Jesus was? That is a discussion that continues to evolve, inviting new perspectives and reflections with every passing era. Among the many religious images that have inspired believers throughout history, few have had as profound an impact as the Head of Christ by Warner Sallman. While this painting has been widely recognized for its serene and compassionate portrayal of Jesus, one event in particular gave it an even deeper significance for the Coptic Orthodox Church. This extraordinary story centers around a 12-year-old boy named Isaac Ayub, whose experience with the image left a lasting impression on the faithful. Isaac had been diagnosed with a severe and advanced form of cancer, a condition that left doctors and his family deeply concerned about his health. According to accounts shared within the Coptic community, one night, while looking at the head of Christ, Isaac witnessed something that he could only describe as miraculous. The eyes of Jesus in the painting appeared to shed tears. Deeply moved by what he saw, Isaac believed that he had witnessed a moment of divine presence, a sign of comfort and reassurance during his time of suffering. What happened next astonished those around him. Following this experience, Isaac's health began to show unexpected improvement. His family, along with members of their church, were overcome with hope as they noticed that he was regaining strength. News of this event spread, and Father Isaac Solomon of St. Mark's Coptic Church in Houston shared the story with the congregation, declaring that Isaac had been healed. This claim was later supported by Dr. Ada Friscala, who had examined the boy the following day and confirmed that there were no remaining signs of leukemia. For the Coptic Orthodox community, this event reaffirmed their belief in divine intervention and the power of faith. The painting, already widely cherished, took on an even greater spiritual significance, becoming a symbol of healing and hope. Many who heard Isaac's story viewed it as an example of how faith and prayer could bring about extraordinary moments in the lives of believers. While the head of Christ remains one of the most recognized images of Jesus in the modern era, it is far from the only depiction that has left a lasting impact. Another significant work that has captivated the world with its artistic mastery and deep spiritual symbolism is Salvator Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci. Unlike many religious paintings that were created based on visions or personal revelations, Salvator Mundi emerged from the artistic and intellectual traditions of the Renaissance. In this masterpiece, Jesus is portrayed wearing a flowing blue robe, a representation of both nobility and divinity. His right hand is raised in a gesture of blessing, while his left hand holds a perfectly clear crystal orb. The symbolism of the orb has been widely discussed. Some believe it represents Jesus' dominion over the world and the cosmos, while others interpret it as a reflection of divine wisdom and spiritual enlightenment. Da Vinci, known for his meticulous attention to detail and fascination with the interplay between science and art, infused Salvator Mundi with layers of meaning. The carefully crafted orb, with its near-perfect transparency, was designed to symbolize harmony and order, reflecting the Renaissance era's philosophical ideas about the relationship between the material and the divine. Through this composition, Da Vinci captured the concept of Jesus as the bridge between the earthly and the heavenly, reinforcing the belief that his presence was both human and divine. For centuries, Salvator Mundi remained an object of admiration and mystery. Unlike some of da Vinci's other works, such as The Last Supper and Mona Lisa, this particular painting disappeared from public view for long periods, leading to speculation about its authenticity and origins. It resurfaced centuries later and was identified as an original Da Vinci painting, igniting renewed interest in its history. In November 2017, Salvator Mundi made headlines around the world when it was sold at auction for an astonishing $450 million, making it the most expensive artwork ever sold. The sale brought renewed attention to the painting, not only for its artistic value, but also for its portrayal of Jesus. Scholars and historians debated whether da Vinci's representation was based on historical descriptions of Jesus, or if it was a more symbolic interpretation crafted within the artistic styles of the time. Regardless of the differing viewpoints, Salvator Mundi remains one of the most enigmatic and revered images of Jesus, reflecting both the artistic genius of its creator and the spiritual depth it conveys. While paintings like Salvator Mundi and the Head of Christ have shaped modern visual representations of Jesus, there are also historical accounts that claim to describe his physical appearance based on first-hand observations. One of the most intriguing and widely debated of these accounts is the Letter of Lentulus to Caesar. According to tradition, Lentulus was a Roman official who lived during the time of Jesus, though his actual existence remains a subject of historical debate. The letter attributed to him provides a detailed description of Jesus' appearance, suggesting that he was a well-known figure among those who lived in the region. Unlike artistic depictions influenced by cultural and stylistic choices, the Letter of Lentulus is presented as an eyewitness account, making it a fascinating document for those interested in historical perspectives on Jesus. The description contained in the letter differs significantly from the familiar images seen in religious art throughout history. It challenges long-standing artistic conventions, raising questions about how Jesus was perceived in his time and whether traditional portrayals accurately reflect his appearance. While many historians question the authenticity of the letter, others consider it an intriguing piece of historical literature that reflects the ways in which Jesus' image has been shaped and reinterpreted over the centuries. The existence of the Letter of Lentulus invites further discussion about the ways in which Jesus has been visually represented. Throughout history, different cultures and artistic movements have depicted him in ways that reflect their own traditions and perspectives. From early Christian mosaics to Renaissance masterpieces to modern devotional paintings, the image of Jesus has evolved, influenced by both historical records and spiritual beliefs. Regardless of whether the Letter of Lentulus is viewed as a historical document or a later creation, it contributes to the ongoing conversation about Jesus' physical appearance. More importantly, it serves as a reminder that religious imagery is often shaped by cultural and theological contexts rather than historical accuracy. While paintings and artistic interpretations provide a visual reference for believers, the true essence of Jesus lies not in his physical appearance, but in his teachings, message, and enduring influence. As we explore the various ways Jesus has been depicted from miraculous visions to Renaissance masterpieces to historical descriptions, it becomes clear that his significance transcends any single image. Whether through faith, art, or historical inquiry, people continue to seek a deeper understanding of his presence in the world. These depictions, regardless of their origins, serve as a bridge between past and present, allowing believers to connect with their faith in a way that resonates with their own spiritual journey. With so many interpretations and representations, the question remains: how should we think about Jesus' appearance? Perhaps the answer is not in any one image, but in the impact he has had on history, faith, and the hearts of those who follow his teachings. As artistic expressions, spiritual experiences, and historical narratives continue to evolve, the mystery of Jesus' true appearance remains an open-ended exploration, inviting believers to see beyond the image and into the deeper meaning of his presence. A letter, believed to be centuries old, offers a strikingly human depiction of Jesus, one that contrasts with the more visionary and symbolic portrayals that have dominated religious art for generations. Unlike grand artistic representations that emphasize divinity, this account presents Jesus with a sense of familiarity, as if he were described by someone who had observed him up close. The document in question is known as the Letter of Lentulus, attributed to a Roman official who supposedly lived during Jesus' time. While some historians question the letter's authenticity, its impact on artistic and cultural portrayals of Jesus has been undeniable. If Lentulus was indeed a real historical figure, what was his connection to Jesus? How did he come to describe him in such detail? To uncover the significance of this letter, we must explore its mysterious origins, its influence throughout history, and whether it aligns with other early descriptions of Jesus. Lentulus is said to have been a Roman governor of Judea before Pontius Pilate, a position that would have given him direct knowledge of the region's most notable figures. The Letter of Lentulus provides an account of Jesus' appearance, written as if it were a report to Caesar. However, no official Roman records confirm that a governor named Lentulus ever held office in Judea. This has led scholars to debate whether the letter is an authentic historical document or a later creation meant to provide a visual description of Jesus based on traditional beliefs. The letter first gained widespread attention in the 15th century when it began appearing in religious and artistic circles, influencing how Jesus was depicted in paintings and sculptures. One of the earliest references to the document comes from Christopher Millis, an 18th-century librarian from Jena, who claimed that the letter was a work of exceptional craftsmanship. According to his description, the original manuscript was written in golden letters on red parchment, bound with ornate decorations. Unfortunately, this document has since been lost, adding to the mystery surrounding its origins. Some accounts from the 19th century suggest that the letter may have been traced back to the time of Emperor Diocletian, but modern scholars generally regard this claim as unlikely. Nevertheless, variations of the letter have been found in different historical texts. One of the most notable references was by Ludolf, who included it in his writings about the life of Christ. Another mention appears in the works of Saint Anselm, though he was not the letter's original author. According to historical records, a scholar named Giacomo Colonna is credited with discovering the letter in 1432. He reportedly found it among ancient Roman documents that had been sent from Constantinople to Rome. The letter's discovery during this period coincided with a time when religious art was heavily influenced by textual descriptions of Jesus, leading some to believe that the letter played a significant role in shaping Renaissance portrayals of Christ. What makes this letter particularly intriguing is how its description of Jesus aligns with other early Christian portrayals. Some scholars have pointed to similarities between the Letter of Lentulus and the writings of Saint John of Damascus, a theologian from the 8th century who also described Jesus in detail. The fact that multiple historical sources contain similar descriptions has led some to question whether the letter might be based on an older tradition. So what does the Letter of Lentulus actually say about Jesus? According to the text, Jesus is described as a man of exceptional presence, someone who commands both respect and admiration. He is referred to as a figure of wisdom, known by some as the prophet of truth and by his disciples as the Son of God. The letter provides specific details about his appearance, offering a rare physical description of one of history's most influential figures. Lentulus describes Jesus as being of medium height, with a dignified and striking presence. His hair is said to be the color of ripe hazelnuts, wavy and curling at the ends, reaching down to his shoulders and parted in the style of the Nazarene tradition. His face is depicted as always cheerful, free of wrinkles or blemishes, with smooth eyebrows and a full beard. His eyes, described as a bright blue-gray, are said to be both intense and gentle, capable of expressing deep emotion. The letter portrays Jesus as having a strong yet graceful posture, with well-formed arms and hands. He is said to be serious yet kind, direct in his teachings but compassionate in his advice. According to Lentulus, Jesus was never known to laugh, but he was often seen weeping, reflecting a deep sense of empathy for the people around him. He is described as the most beautiful among all men, a statement that not only speaks to his physical presence, but also to his profound spiritual impact. If this description is to be taken as authentic, how does it compare to biblical accounts? One of the most discussed details in the letter is Jesus' long hair. Some argue that this contradicts cultural norms of the time, as men typically kept their hair short. However, Jesus was often referred to as a Nazarene, and some scholars point out that Nazarites, those who took a religious vow, were known for growing their hair long as part of their commitment to their faith. This tradition aligns with the letter's depiction of Jesus' hair. Another interesting detail in the letter is Jesus' emotional demeanor. The statement that he was never known to laugh, but frequently seen weeping, is consistent with certain biblical passages. Hebrews 4 describes Jesus as being touched with the feeling of our infirmities, emphasizing his deep compassion and understanding of human suffering. Additionally, in moments of profound prayer, such as in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus is depicted as experiencing deep emotional distress, further reinforcing the description of him as someone moved by the burdens of others. The letter's portrayal of Jesus as someone who could inspire both love and reverence aligns with various scriptural descriptions. Proverbs 1 states, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge," emphasizing the duality of Jesus as both a compassionate teacher and a figure of divine authority. Similarly, Proverbs 3:12 states, "Whom the Lord loveth he correcteth," a sentiment that reflects the balance between kindness and discipline that Lentulus attributes to Jesus. While the authenticity of the Letter of Lentulus remains debated, its influence on historical depictions of Jesus is undeniable. Whether the letter is an ancient document or a later creation meant to align with artistic traditions, it has contributed to shaping the way people visualize Jesus across different cultures and time periods. The fascination with how Jesus may have truly looked continues to spark discussion. While religious artwork, visions, and historical descriptions each provide their own interpretations, they all share a common theme: Jesus is depicted as a figure of wisdom, compassion, and profound influence. Whether seen through the lens of art, historical records, or spiritual belief, his presence continues to resonate with people worldwide. As we explore the various ways Jesus has been portrayed throughout history, one question remains. Does it truly matter what he looked like, or is his message the most important aspect of his legacy? Perhaps the significance of these descriptions lies not in their physical accuracy, but in their ability to connect believers to the deeper teachings and spiritual impact of Jesus. Whatever the answer may be, the search for understanding continues, inviting new perspectives and discussions for generations to come. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Letter of Lentulus is its description of Jesus as the most beautiful among the children of men. This statement has sparked debate among scholars and theologians because it appears to contrast with a passage from the book of Isaiah, which states, "He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him." Isaiah 53:2. This difference in portrayal raises important questions about the letter's intent and whether it was meant to convey a physical description or a deeper spiritual truth about Jesus' presence. Some scholars argue that the Letter of Lentulus reflects a symbolic rather than literal interpretation of beauty. In biblical texts, beauty is often associated with righteousness, wisdom, and divine favor rather than physical appearance. It is possible that the phrase "most beautiful" refers to Jesus' inner qualities, his kindness, compassion, and spiritual authority, rather than his outward features. Others believe that this discrepancy highlights the complexities of ancient interpretations, where different traditions and cultures may have described Jesus in ways that aligned with their theological perspectives. Beyond these theological discussions, the letter's authenticity has been a topic of significant debate. While it provides a vivid description of Jesus, there are aspects of its history that raise questions about its origins and accuracy. Scholars have long examined whether the Letter of Lentulus is a genuine historical document from Jesus' time, or whether it was written centuries later as part of an effort to create a standardized image of Christ. Some researchers classify the letter as apocryphal, meaning that while it may contain elements of religious or historical significance, it is not considered an officially recognized document from the period of Jesus' ministry. The language, structure, and themes found in the letter have been compared to other apocryphal writings, such as the Epistle of Barnabas and the Shepherd of Hermas, both of which feature biblical figures and themes related to Jesus, but were written outside of the canonized scripture. One major point of contention is the absence of any mention of Publius Lentulus as the governor of Judea in Roman records. In historical accounts from the 15th century, no manuscripts confirm that a person by that name held such a position. Instead, it has been suggested that Lentulus may have been a Roman official who traveled to Jerusalem or Judea, but did not serve as a governor. If this were the case, it would imply that the title may have been added to the letter at a later date, either as an embellishment or as a means of lending credibility to the text. This raises the possibility that the Letter of Lentulus underwent modifications over time, with different versions emerging to fit various historical and religious narratives. It is not uncommon for ancient texts to be adapted or expanded upon, especially when they are transmitted through oral traditions or copied by scribes across different generations. This variation in manuscripts suggests that while the letter may have a historical foundation, its final form may not be entirely authentic to the time of Jesus. To understand the broader historical context, we can look at the Roman administrative system and the individuals who held power during the time of Jesus. Records indicate that several Roman officials, known as consuls, were active during this period, and it was common practice for consuls to write letters to the Senate regarding matters of governance. This context has led some scholars to question whether the Letter of Lentulus fits within this tradition of official Roman correspondence, or whether it was later constructed to provide a retrospective account of Jesus' life. Interestingly, the Letter of Lentulus is not the only historical document that describes Jesus in a similar way. There are other letters and records from antiquity that discuss his personality, teachings, and impact on those around him. One of the most well-known examples is the correspondence between King Abgar of Edessa and Jesus. According to historical tradition, Abgar, a ruler of Edessa, was one of the earliest monarchs to express interest in Jesus. In his letter, he refers to Jesus as a good physician and requests healing for a serious illness. Some accounts claim that Jesus did visit Abgar and miraculously healed him, while others suggest that Jesus responded by saying that he would send one of his disciples instead. The details of this exchange have been debated for centuries, but what is significant is that Abgar's description of Jesus as a healer aligns with similar depictions found in the Letter of Lentulus. This connection raises an important question. Could multiple historical sources, independent of each other, be describing the same figure in similar terms? If so, this might suggest that the descriptions in the Letter of Lentulus have some basis in ancient traditions, even if the letter itself was written later. However, to establish its authenticity beyond doubt, scholars would need additional historical evidence, such as Roman records or independent writings from the period, to confirm Lentulus' existence and his role in documenting Jesus' life. Another interesting comparison can be made with the letter from Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar, which also describes Jesus in detail. In this account, Jesus is portrayed as a strict, pious individual who was deeply committed to truth. This aligns with the Letter of Lentulus, which refers to Jesus as the prophet of truth and emphasizes his sternness when offering reprimands. The consistency between these letters suggests that the depiction of Jesus as a wise teacher and a moral leader was a widely accepted view, at least among those who wrote about him in historical and religious texts. While these documents provide fascinating insights, it is important to recognize the limitations of relying on them as definitive historical records. The passage of time, the influence of religious traditions, and the potential for alterations in ancient texts all contribute to the difficulty of verifying their authenticity. However, even if the Letter of Lentulus is not an original eyewitness account, it remains valuable as a reflection of how Jesus was perceived in different eras and cultures. Regardless of whether the letter was written during Jesus' lifetime or crafted centuries later, its influence on the artistic and theological portrayals of Christ cannot be overlooked. The vivid description of Jesus found in the letter shaped the way Renaissance artists depicted him, reinforcing certain physical characteristics that have persisted in Christian iconography. The legacy of these portrayals continues to inspire discussions about how Jesus is envisioned in both religious and historical contexts. At its core, the Letter of Lentulus invites us to consider not just how Jesus looked, but what his presence meant to those who encountered him. Whether viewed through the lens of historical inquiry or religious faith, the descriptions of Jesus found in ancient writings offer a glimpse into how he was remembered by different communities across time. The debate over the letter's authenticity may never be fully resolved, but its existence ensures that the conversation about Jesus' life, his teachings, and his legacy will continue for generations to come. As we explore these historical narratives, one question remains: does the physical description of Jesus truly matter, or is his impact on humanity far more significant? The answer may lie not in written records or artistic representations, but in the message he shared, a message of compassion, wisdom, and a call to seek truth beyond appearances. Whether seen as a historical figure, a spiritual guide, or both, Jesus' influence endures, shaping the beliefs and perspectives of people around the world. Throughout history, artists and believers alike have sought to depict Jesus in ways that reflect both their faith and their cultural influences. However, the earliest images of Jesus do not resemble the now familiar portrayals seen in churches and religious paintings. This raises an important question: how do these early depictions compare to the descriptions found in historical writings, such as the Letter of Lentulus? And how did the artistic representation of Jesus evolve over time, especially in the early Christian world? In the first few centuries after the original apostles passed away, Christianity underwent significant changes. What had begun as a small and persecuted religious movement gradually grew into an influential and structured faith. However, as Christianity spread to different regions, cultural influences began to shape how Jesus was understood and depicted. New traditions, artistic interpretations, and theological perspectives emerged, leading to significant shifts in religious expression. The earliest known images of Jesus date back to roughly AD 200 to 250, meaning they were created about 2 centuries after Jesus' earthly ministry. Because these early artists had no first-hand knowledge of his physical appearance, their representations were not intended to be realistic portraits. Instead, they relied on symbolic imagery to convey spiritual messages. One of the most common depictions from this era portrays Jesus as the Good Shepherd, a youthful and strong figure carrying a lamb on his shoulders. In these images, Jesus is shown as a beardless man, far different from the later portrayals that would become dominant in Christian art. Most of these early representations have been found in the catacombs of Rome, underground burial sites used by early Christians. This is significant because it suggests that these artistic traditions were shaped more by the Roman world than by the regions where Jesus and his first followers lived. In Judea and Asia Minor, the earliest Christian communities may have had different ways of imagining Jesus, but these interpretations have largely been lost to time. One of the challenges historians face when studying early Christian art is distinguishing it from pagan imagery. Many elements found in early depictions of Jesus resemble those used in Roman and Greek religious art. The Good Shepherd motif, for example, was a common symbol in ancient pagan cultures, representing kindness and care. This raises the possibility that early Christian artists adapted familiar artistic conventions to communicate their faith in ways that would be understood by people of their time. It was not until after Emperor Constantine's conversion to Christianity in the 4th century that more detailed artistic portrayals of Jesus began to appear in churches. Before Constantine, many Christian communities resisted the idea of depicting Jesus in visual art. Some believed that creating images of Christ was inappropriate, fearing that such representations might lead to idolatry. However, as Christianity became more integrated into Roman society, the use of religious imagery became more widely accepted. Constantine's influence reshaped Christianity in profound ways. Under his rule, the faith adopted several Roman customs, including the use of statues and sacred images in worship. By the late 4th century, images of Jesus had become a common feature in churches. Some believers treated these images with great reverence, while others expressed concern that the practice blurred the line between honoring Christ and worshiping physical objects. Despite ongoing debates, religious art became an essential part of Christian tradition, particularly in the Roman and Byzantine empires. Although these artistic developments helped establish a visual identity for Jesus, they did not necessarily reflect historical accuracy. Instead, they provided a way for believers to connect with their faith through imagery. The descriptions found in historical writings like the Letter of Lentulus offer a different perspective, suggesting that early Christians may have imagined Jesus in ways that differed from later artistic interpretations. By examining both artistic and textual sources, we gain a deeper understanding of how Jesus' image evolved over time. One of the most intriguing artifacts associated with the image of Jesus is the Shroud of Turin, a cloth that some believe bears the actual imprint of his face and body. Unlike paintings and sculptures that rely on artistic imagination, the shroud presents an image that appears to be naturally formed, making it a subject of great fascination for historians, scientists, and theologians. The Shroud of Turin first gained widespread attention in 1354 when it was discovered in France. This ancient linen cloth bears a faint but detailed image of a man who appears to have undergone crucifixion. For centuries, many people, particularly within the Catholic Church, have regarded it as the actual burial shroud of Jesus. According to tradition, the image on the cloth was miraculously imprinted when Jesus' body was wrapped in it after his crucifixion. Although the shroud's historical origins are debated, it has remained one of the most studied religious relics in history. Scientists and researchers have examined the fabric, attempting to determine how the image was formed. Some have speculated that the imprint was created by a process resembling a thermonuclear flash, a controlled release of energy so precise that it left an image on the surface of the fibers without damaging the material. This theory suggests that the image was imprinted with such accuracy that only the top layer of fibers was affected, preserving a remarkably clear and detailed impression of a human form. The formation of the image remains a mystery, fueling ongoing debates between those who believe in its miraculous origins and those who seek a scientific explanation. Some researchers argue that the shroud is a medieval artifact, possibly created as a religious relic during the Middle Ages. Others believe that its unique characteristics suggest a much older origin, potentially dating back to the time of Jesus. Regardless of its true origins, the Shroud of Turin continues to inspire devotion and intrigue, making it one of the most enduring religious artifacts in history. An alternative theory suggests that the image on the shroud could be linked to the transfiguration of Jesus, an event described in the Gospels where Jesus' appearance was temporarily transformed by divine light. According to this theory, a burst of radiant energy during this moment could have caused the image to be imprinted on the cloth. Some believe that this phenomenon was a sign of Jesus' divinity, preserving a tangible record of his presence on earth. Interestingly, the Shroud of Turin bears a physical description that aligns with certain historical accounts of Jesus. The image depicts a man with a beard, mustache, and shoulder-length hair parted down the middle. According to some interpretations of the Letter of Lentulus, Jesus was described as tall and dignified, a characteristic that seems to match the figure on the shroud. Measurements of the image suggest that the man was between 5'7" and 6'2" in height, which is consistent with the average height of people in the Middle East during the 1st century. While the true origins of the shroud remain unknown, it has played a significant role in shaping the way people visualize Jesus. For many, it represents a powerful symbol of faith, serving as a physical connection to the story of Christ. Whether seen as an authentic relic or an object of deep religious significance, the Shroud of Turin continues to spark curiosity and inspire devotion. The evolution of Jesus' image from symbolic representations in early Christian art to detailed portraits in Renaissance paintings to mysterious relics like the shroud reflects the ways in which different cultures and historical periods have sought to understand and depict him. Each of these interpretations offers a unique perspective, shaped by religious beliefs, artistic traditions, and historical context. As we examine these depictions, one question remains. Do these images truly capture the essence of Jesus, or is his true significance found beyond physical appearance? Perhaps the answer lies not in the details of his face, but in the message he brought to the world, a message of compassion, faith, and hope that continues to resonate across generations. Whatever the case may be, the search for understanding continues, inviting new discoveries and interpretations for centuries to come. The Shroud of Turin has long been a subject of intense fascination and debate. Among its most intriguing features are the reddish-brown stains that appear on the cloth, positioned in a manner consistent with the wounds described in the biblical accounts of Jesus' crucifixion. These markings, which resemble bloodstains, have led many to believe that the shroud is a direct link to the historical Jesus, serving as physical evidence of his suffering and death. However, despite its revered status as the holy veil in certain religious traditions, skepticism remains. While some believers see it as an undeniable relic of Jesus' life, others question its authenticity and prefer to rely solely on biblical descriptions to understand who Jesus was. For many, the Bible remains the most trustworthy source of information about Jesus, not only in terms of his teachings, but also in forming an idea of his physical presence. Throughout Western history, the most widely recognized image of Jesus has been that of a fair-skinned man with long, wavy, light brown or blonde hair, often accompanied by blue eyes. This depiction, deeply ingrained in religious art and culture, has become the default image in many churches, paintings, and films. However, when we turn to the Bible itself, we find that it provides no clear description of Jesus' physical features. The text focuses on his teachings, actions, and divine nature rather than his outward appearance. The primary sources for Jesus' life are the four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which document his ministry, death, and resurrection. According to these accounts, Jesus was a Jewish man born in Bethlehem and raised in Nazareth, a town in Galilee, during the 1st century. The Gospel of Luke mentions that he was around 30 years old when he began his public ministry, which suggests that he had the appearance of an adult man in his prime. However, there are no explicit references to his height, build, or specific facial features. One indirect clue about Jesus' physical appearance comes from the story of his arrest in the Garden of Gethsemane, as recorded in Matthew 26:46-56. When Judas Iscariot led the soldiers to Jesus, he had to identify him with a kiss. This suggests that Jesus did not stand out in any particularly striking way. He likely resembled his disciples enough that a simple visual identification was insufficient. If Jesus had had an extraordinary or distinctive appearance, it would have been easier for the soldiers to recognize him without the need for Judas' signal. Some scholars and theologians point to the book of Revelation for symbolic descriptions of Jesus' features. In Revelation 1:14-15, Jesus is described as having hair that is white like wool and eyes that are like a flame of fire. His feet are likened to burnished bronze refined in a furnace. While this passage is often interpreted metaphorically, some have suggested that it provides hints about Jesus' physical characteristics. The mention of burnished bronze has led to speculation that Jesus may have had a darker complexion than traditionally depicted, while the description of hair like wool has been taken as a reference to a coarser, curlier hair texture. However, it is important to note that Revelation is highly symbolic in nature, and its descriptions are not meant to be literal portraits. Beyond textual interpretations, archaeological discoveries have provided additional insights into how Jesus may have been depicted in early Christian communities. In 2018, a significant finding was made in southern Israel. An early portrait of Jesus painted on the walls of a ruined church dating back to the 6th century. Add this image, the earliest known depiction of Christ discovered in Israel, challenges the traditional Western portrayal. Instead of the long-haired, bearded figure that later became standard, this portrait presents Jesus with shorter, curly hair, a style that was more common in regions such as Egypt and Syria-Palestine during that era. As Christianity expanded beyond its Jewish roots and spread across the Roman Empire, artistic representations of Jesus began to evolve. By the 4th century, following Emperor Constantine's conversion to Christianity, the portrayal of Jesus started shifting significantly. Instead of being depicted as a humble teacher or a shepherd, he began to be shown in a more regal and divine manner. This new artistic style was heavily influenced by Greek and Roman iconography, particularly images of deities like Zeus. During this period, Jesus was often portrayed as an authoritative figure with long, flowing hair and a beard, dressed in robes and seated on a throne. One of the earliest examples of this transformation can be seen in a 5th-century mosaic located in the Church of Santa Pudenziana in Rome. This artwork presents Jesus as a divine ruler, complete with a halo around his head, a feature that became a common artistic symbol of holiness and divinity in later Christian art. As artistic traditions continued to develop, the Western portrayal of Jesus became firmly established. Over the centuries, cultural influences played a significant role in shaping these depictions, often aligning Jesus' appearance with the dominant ethnic and aesthetic preferences of different societies. However, not all depictions of Jesus conform to the Western image. Around the world, various cultures have created artistic representations that reflect their own racial and ethnic identities. This phenomenon is a natural part of religious expression, as people tend to envision sacred figures in ways that resonate with their own backgrounds. In parts of Africa, Jesus has been depicted with darker skin. In East Asia, he is sometimes shown with features that resemble those of Chinese or Japanese figures. These diverse representations highlight the universal nature of Jesus' message, transcending geographic and ethnic boundaries. In 2001, a groundbreaking project sought to provide a more historically accurate image of Jesus. A team of Israeli and British forensic anthropologists, along with computer programmers and a medical artist, used scientific and archaeological data to reconstruct what a typical first-century Jewish man from Galilee might have looked like. Using skulls from the region, they developed a digital rendering that depicted Jesus with a broad face, dark curly hair, and olive-brown skin features that more closely align with Middle Eastern populations rather than the traditionally Western portrayals. While this reconstruction was not meant to be a definitive portrait of Jesus, it provided an alternative perspective based on historical and forensic evidence. The findings reinforced the idea that Jesus likely resembled the common physical traits of the Jewish people of his time, rather than the European-style depictions that later became widespread. Ultimately, the question of what Jesus truly looked like may never be fully answered. The Bible offers little in terms of physical description, and historical records from his time are scarce. Yet, despite the lack of a concrete image, his influence has transcended appearances. For many believers, the significance of Jesus lies not in his physical characteristics, but in his teachings, his compassion, and the message of hope and redemption that continues to resonate across generations. Whether represented through ancient mosaics, Renaissance paintings, modern scientific reconstructions, or cultural adaptations, Jesus remains one of the most universally recognized figures in history. His image may change depending on the artist or the culture, but the essence of his story remains unchanged, a figure of wisdom, kindness, and profound spiritual impact. As we explore these different portrayals, one question remains. Does it truly matter what Jesus looked like, or is his message the true reflection of his identity? Perhaps the most important takeaway is that his legacy is not defined by physical features, but by the values he taught and the lives he continues to inspire. In an effort to uncover a more historically accurate representation of Jesus, a team of forensic experts, anthropologists, and computer modelers collaborated on a project that sought to reconstruct his physical appearance using modern scientific techniques. They based their findings on an ancient skull from Israel that dated back to the 1st century AD, a period that aligned with the time of Jesus' earthly life. By combining this skull with data on the general physical traits of Jewish populations in the region, they were able to generate a digital reconstruction of what a typical Galilean man from that era might have looked like. While this rendering is not intended to be an exact likeness of Jesus, it provides a perspective that many scholars believe is far closer to reality than the more traditional depictions seen in Western art. According to their research, Jesus most likely had brown eyes, dark brown to black hair, and an olive-brown skin tone, features that were common among people in Judea and surrounding areas such as Egypt and Syria. His facial structure was likely strong and well-defined, with a broad nose and full lips, reflecting the ethnic diversity of the region at the time. One of the most surprising findings from this study was related to Jesus' height. Based on archaeological evidence, the average height of men in 1st century Judea was approximately 5 feet 5 inches 166 centimeters. This suggests that Jesus was likely shorter than the tall, slender figure often portrayed in religious artwork. This detail may seem minor, but it reinforces the idea that historical representations of Jesus have been shaped as much by cultural and artistic traditions as by historical reality. Another scholar, examining ancient artistic depictions from early Christian communities, has suggested that newer representations of Jesus, which depict him with darker, possibly curlier hair, deep brown eyes, and a more robust build, may be more accurate than the familiar Western imagery. These findings align with the physical traits of first-century Jewish men and challenge long-held assumptions about Jesus' appearance. However, despite the advancements in forensic reconstruction and historical analysis, the true likeness of Jesus remains unknown, and it is unlikely that any depiction, whether scientific or artistic, can fully capture his presence. This brings us to a broader question: how much does Jesus' physical appearance actually matter? For centuries, different cultures have depicted him in ways that reflect their own traditions and identities. In European Renaissance art, Jesus was often painted with fair skin, light brown or blonde hair, and blue or green eyes, resembling the people of that region. In parts of Africa, Asia, and Latin America, Jesus has been portrayed with features more representative of the local populations. These variations highlight the universal appeal of Jesus' message. He is not bound by a single ethnic or cultural identity, but is embraced by believers across the world. Yet, the question of Jesus' true appearance also raises important theological and philosophical discussions. Some people believe that visions experienced by saints, mystics, or religious figures throughout history provide insight into what Jesus looked like. For example, Saint Faustina Kowalska's vision of Jesus, which led to the creation of the Divine Mercy image, depicted him as a light-skinned man with flowing hair and a peaceful expression. Similarly, other religious experiences have resulted in different portrayals, each reflecting the perspective of the person receiving the vision. These descriptions, whether from scientific research, historical texts, or spiritual experiences, ultimately remind us of one fundamental truth: any attempt to capture the fullness of Jesus' divine nature through human art or reconstruction will always be incomplete. The physical representation of Jesus may be a matter of historical curiosity, but for many believers, his true essence goes far beyond outward appearances. In Christian teachings, the focus is on the return of Jesus, a moment when, according to Scripture, all will see him in his divine glory. Many faithful followers look forward to this day, believing that only then will the full nature of Jesus be revealed. It is a moment of great anticipation, where believers expect to witness his presence in a way that surpasses any artistic interpretation or forensic reconstruction. So, after examining historical records, forensic reconstructions, religious art, and biblical references, one question remains: does it truly matter what Jesus looked like? Was he a man of European features, as often depicted in Western religious art? Or was he a Middle Eastern man with darker skin and Semitic features, more in line with the historical and archaeological evidence? Perhaps the answer lies not in his physical form, but in his teachings, his actions, and the impact he has had on millions of lives across centuries. In the end, Jesus' legacy is not defined by the color of his hair or the shape of his face, but by the message of love, compassion, and redemption that continues to inspire people around the world. Whether seen through the lens of science, history, or faith, one truth remains: Jesus is a figure who transcends time, culture, and physical form, uniting people across nations with his enduring words and example. There is something remarkable about the way Jesus has been depicted throughout history, shifting from one cultural interpretation to another, yet always retaining a presence that feels both familiar and divine to those who believe in him. Whether through paintings, sculptures, or digital reconstructions, these portrayals attempt to give shape to someone whose significance extends far beyond his earthly form. While science and history may offer insights into his possible physical characteristics, the deeper connection many have with Jesus is rooted in something that cannot be captured by any single image or description. The fascination with his appearance continues, not just because people want to know what he looked like, but because they seek a deeper understanding of who he was and what he represents. As Christianity spread across different regions, it absorbed cultural influences that shaped the way people imagined Jesus. In some parts of the world, he was depicted with lighter features, reflecting European artistic traditions, while in others he was shown with darker skin, resembling the communities that worshipped him. This phenomenon is not unique to Jesus. Many historical and religious figures have been adapted to fit the artistic and cultural standards of the societies that revere them. Yet, despite these variations, the central message attributed to Jesus remains unchanged. His words about love, mercy, and faith have endured for centuries, resonating with people regardless of how they envision him. The Gospels provide no specific details about Jesus' physical appearance, leading to a wide range of interpretations. This absence of description has allowed different cultures to present him in ways that feel most meaningful to them. Some believe this lack of detail is intentional, emphasizing that his message and actions were more important than his outward appearance. Others speculate that Jesus' features may have been so unremarkable that there was no reason to describe them, aligning with passages that suggest he did not stand out in a crowd. His ability to connect with people came not from his physical attributes, but from the power of his words and the depth of his compassion. Historical reconstructions offer a different perspective, suggesting that Jesus likely bore the physical characteristics common among Jewish men of his time: dark hair, brown eyes, olive-toned skin, and a sturdy build. This depiction contrasts sharply with the familiar images of Jesus that have dominated Western religious art for centuries, which often portray him with fair skin, light-colored eyes, and delicate features. While these representations have become deeply ingrained in Christian culture, they are shaped more by artistic convention than by historical accuracy. They were influenced by the aesthetics of their time, reflecting the ideals of beauty and divinity that artists sought to convey. The desire to see Jesus in a way that feels personally meaningful is a testament to the deep spiritual connection many have with him. People often imagine him in a way that makes his presence feel more accessible, more relatable. In this sense, the different portrayals of Jesus are not contradictions, but reflections of the universal nature of his message. Whether depicted in stained glass windows, ancient frescoes, or modern digital art, the essence of Jesus is found not in the details of his face, but in the values he represents. Beyond the visual interpretations, there is also the question of how Jesus was perceived by those who encountered him in person. His disciples and followers were drawn to him, not because of his appearance, but because of the way he spoke, the way he lived, and the way he treated others. His presence was defined by his actions, his kindness, and his wisdom rather than by his physical form. Those who met him saw something in him that went beyond the ordinary: a light, a truth, a sense of purpose that could not be captured in a mere description. The mystery surrounding Jesus' appearance is part of what makes his story so compelling. Unlike historical figures whose likenesses have been preserved through statues, coins, or written accounts, Jesus remains an enigma. His image has been recreated countless times, yet no one can say for certain what he truly looked like. This absence of certainty allows for endless exploration and interpretation, ensuring that every generation has the opportunity to see Jesus in a way that speaks to them. In the end, the debate over Jesus' appearance may not be as important as the impact he has had on humanity. His teachings continue to inspire millions, shaping the way people understand compassion, forgiveness, and faith. Whether imagined through the lens of history, art, or personal belief, Jesus remains a figure of profound significance, transcending time and culture. His face may change from one portrayal to another, but his message remains constant: a message of love, hope, and redemption that continues to touch lives around the world. Through centuries of artistic interpretation, theological reflection, and historical debate, the image of Jesus has taken on many forms. Yet, at the heart of these discussions is the fundamental truth that his influence goes far beyond physical characteristics. His presence in the world was not defined by his outward appearance, but by the impact he had on those who met him, the words he spoke, and the movement he inspired. Whether depicted in Renaissance paintings with flowing golden hair or reconstructed through forensic analysis to reflect the likely features of a first-century Jewish man, the essence of Jesus remains unchanged. People are drawn to him not because of how he may have looked, but because of what he represents, a message of compassion, justice, and love that continues to resonate across cultures and generations. The absence of a definitive physical description in the Bible has contributed to the wide range of artistic and cultural representations of Jesus. This lack of detail allows for a certain universality. Jesus is not bound by one race, one ethnicity, or one culture. Instead, he is depicted in ways that make him feel accessible to different communities. In Ethiopia, centuries-old Christian art portrays Jesus with African features, emphasizing his connection to the region's believers. In Japan, artistic depictions from the hidden Christian period, when Christianity was banned, show Jesus with distinctly East Asian features, a reflection of the way faith adapts to its surroundings. In Latin America, images of Jesus often incorporate local cultural symbols, blending traditional Catholic iconography with indigenous artistic styles. These depictions do not claim to be historically accurate, but serve as expressions of faith, reinforcing the idea that Jesus belongs to all people, regardless of their background. As Christianity spread throughout the world, different cultures embraced Jesus in their own way, finding in him a reflection of their hopes, struggles, and beliefs. The way Jesus has been imagined over time says more about humanity's desire to understand him than about his actual physical form. Art and storytelling have played a crucial role in shaping religious thought, making abstract spiritual concepts more tangible. For many believers, the face of Jesus they grew up seeing, whether in stained glass windows, family Bibles, or religious films, is the face they associate with his presence, regardless of historical accuracy. Yet, even as Jesus has been depicted in countless ways, there are recurring themes in these portrayals. Many images emphasize his gentleness, wisdom, and divine authority. His face is often serene, his expression one of understanding and compassion. Some artists depict him in moments of deep sorrow, reflecting his suffering and sacrifice, while others show him in triumph, symbolizing hope and victory. Regardless of the artistic style or cultural influence, the central message remains the same: Jesus is a figure of profound significance, someone whose life and teachings continue to inspire millions. The significance of Jesus' presence goes beyond art and historical records. His influence is felt in the lives of those who follow his teachings, in the way people strive to embody the values he preached: kindness, humility, and a commitment to justice. For many, the image of Jesus is not as important as the relationship they have with him. Faith is not built on physical features, but on the belief in his message and the desire to live according to his example. While some may search for historical accuracy in depictions of Jesus, others find meaning in the spiritual connection they feel when they pray, when they read his words, or when they see his image in a way that speaks to them. One of the most fascinating aspects of Jesus' portrayal throughout history is how it has evolved to reflect changing times and cultural attitudes. In the early Christian era, he was often depicted as a youthful, beardless shepherd, a symbol of guidance and care. Later, during the Byzantine period, he was shown with more regal features, emphasizing his divine authority. In the Middle Ages, images of Jesus became more solemn and sorrowful, reflecting the emphasis on his suffering and sacrifice. The Renaissance brought highly detailed, humanistic depictions, portraying Jesus with a depth of emotion and realism that made him feel more approachable. More recently, contemporary artists have explored new ways of visualizing Jesus, sometimes challenging traditional depictions and encouraging deeper reflection on who he was and what he stood for. Despite these evolving portrayals, the core message of Jesus has remained the same. His teachings on love, forgiveness, and humility continue to be relevant, transcending the boundaries of time and culture. The power of his story is not confined to historical documents or artistic representations, but is alive in the way people choose to live their lives. Whether seen through the lens of faith, history, or personal belief, Jesus remains one of the most influential figures in human history. The ongoing discussions about Jesus' appearance, whether through forensic reconstructions or theological debates, remind us of the mystery surrounding him. While historical evidence may suggest certain physical characteristics and religious tradition may offer familiar imagery, the true essence of Jesus cannot be captured in any single depiction. Perhaps this is why the Bible provides so little detail about his physical form. It invites people to focus not on what he looked like, but on what he taught, what he stood for, and how his presence continues to shape the world. In the end, the search for Jesus' true image is not about finding a definitive portrait, but about understanding his role in history, in faith, and in the hearts of those who follow him. His legacy is not tied to any one face, but to the countless lives he has touched, the transformations he has inspired, and the hope he continues to bring. Whether imagined with light skin or dark, with long hair or short, in flowing robes or simple garments, Jesus remains a symbol of faith, unity, and love, a presence that cannot be confined to a single depiction, but is instead reflected in the diversity of those who call him their own. No matter how Jesus has been portrayed throughout history, whether in paintings, sculptures, forensic reconstructions, or visions, his true essence has never been about his outward appearance. The fascination with what he may have looked like speaks to humanity's natural curiosity, the desire to connect with someone so central to faith and history. But the significance of Jesus extends far beyond any physical form. His presence is not defined by the color of his skin, the texture of his hair, or the shape of his features. Instead, it is found in his words, his teachings, and the impact he has had on the world. For centuries, believers and scholars alike have debated, studied, and sought evidence of his earthly image. Some have looked to historical texts, others to relics like the Shroud of Turin, and still others to modern forensic reconstructions that attempt to paint a more accurate picture. But ultimately, no painting, no sculpture, and no scientific model can fully capture who Jesus was. His influence is not rooted in how he looked, but in what he represented: hope, compassion, justice, and redemption. The reason Jesus' image has taken so many forms across different cultures is not simply artistic interpretation. It is a reflection of how deeply personal faith can be. People see Jesus in a way that resonates with them, a way that makes his presence feel closer, more relatable. This is why depictions of him vary so widely, from the serene, European-inspired portraits of the Renaissance to the darker, more historically grounded reconstructions seen today. None of these images are necessarily right or wrong, because the truth of Jesus is not something that can be confined to a single face. Perhaps that is why the Bible remains silent on his appearance. The Gospels tell of his kindness, his wisdom, and his unwavering love for humanity, but they offer no detailed description of his physical traits. This omission is telling. It invites believers to focus not on his external form, but on the eternal message he left behind. It challenges us to see Jesus not with our eyes, but with our hearts. In the end, the search for Jesus' true appearance may never be fully answered, and maybe that is how it was meant to be. What matters most is not how he looked, but how his message continues to shape the world. His presence is felt not in paintings or statues, but in the way people choose to live out his teachings. His legacy is alive in acts of kindness, in moments of grace, and in the unshakable belief that love and forgiveness can transform even the darkest corners of the world. So rather than asking what Jesus looked like, perhaps the better question is, how do we reflect his message in our own lives? How do we embody the values he preached: compassion, humility, and unwavering faith? His image may change from one culture to another, but his impact remains universal. No matter how we imagine him, his presence continues to inspire, comfort, and guide. And perhaps that is the only image of Jesus that truly matters.